gathered a whole lot in groups, but people were here, and you could see that it was a lot more busy. Constantly people on the mountain hiking around, just looking for somewhere to go, something to do. Kids last spring doing homework on the patio. Just a very different kind of summer. The golf course, Kevin and I were just talking, set records for a number of rounds this year, which was great, really nice to see. Mulligan's was an awesome place for lunch and dinner, kind of because we had to be outdoors, that was probably the best spot in town. So they did very well. And what was nice at the golf course was a lot of new people. Some who were golfers, but some who were brand new. We did a lot of lessons this summer. There were less tournaments and less groups, and despite that, we had a lot more people playing golf. So it was really nice to see a busy golf course. Same thing here with the bike park. We opened a little later than usual. Normally we open on Memorial Day, and we waited a little bit into June, and still had better numbers than the previous year. So it was nice to see people showing up and trying to sport and biking more often, and again, just wanting to get outside and having something to do. So those two things did really well this summer. Our big hit, of course, was weddings. We had a full summer booked, every weekend at least one wedding, and every one of those, the good news is, postponed until next year. We held a few in the fall. We had a couple of 40, 50 people weddings that would go to the summit and come back down and have a quiet little ceremony. But that was it, and that's a big hit. We've worked hard over the last few years to build up that business. So next year, assuming we can have weddings at less than a year from now, should be a really busy summer. We had drive-in concerts. As you know, the past couple of years we've done some really fun barbecue and music up at the Wheelhouse on Friday nights, and that obviously wasn't going to happen. So the best we could do was have cars drive in. Out here we had bands out in front of the ticket window, and pretty good crowds, some beautiful Friday evenings that were still popular, and just trying to give people something to do to come here. So people appreciated that. And lodging was really quiet, obviously, in April, May, started to pick back up in June as people wanted to get out of the house and come to the Catskills. So the Wynwood actually did pretty well. The pool was very popular, and it really kind of came back. Most of our lodging in the summer is typically around those weddings, but we managed to fill some of those weekends anyway, and now we're seeing really strong reservations going into the winter. People looking to get away. So that was summer. The other good news is that we were able to spend some money on capital projects. You saw a lot of ski areas just shut down completely when the pandemic hit and everybody shut down in March. We cut back our capital list significantly, but we kept the things that were really priorities and that we think are really going to help us moving forward. We'll talk a little bit more about those later. Most of them were focused around the mountain and being able to continue to make snowmaking improvements and a few other things around here that were really significant. But we're fortunate that we were in the financial shape to be able to do that, and we thought it was important enough to continue to move forward. So we'll skip that next one. So this is what the National Skiers Association put out. We're all members, skiers are all members of the National Skiers Association, and it really showed its value this summer. It's a fairly small industry anyway, and we work very closely together. But what I really love is that skiers are willing to share best practices. And I can pick up the phone at any time and talk to peers about, what are you doing about this? What do you think about that? And this summer in particular, obviously being new to everybody, that was really important. So this is one of the things that NSA came up with. This is Michaela Schiffman wearing a mask, who becomes kind of the spokesperson for skiing, to one, sell to states that we can do this safely, that it's outside, and this is what skiing and riding is all about. And so a lot of us used this when we were working with the governor's office, for example, and being able to explain how skiing works. Because only 3% of the population actually are skiers and riders. So the other 97% doesn't really have a good picture of what goes on. It feels like to us a lot more people than that ski and ride. But this is where we started with, this is what it's about. We're already wearing masks and gloves and goggles and those kind of things. So let's work together to make it happen. These are some of the signs also that NSAA came up with. You've probably seen them already this morning. You'll see these at every ski area around the country this winter. There are more than this, but this is helpful for all of us to put it out there. And ski well, be well has become the phrase for the industry. Stay healthy. Let's make sure we can have a season. And the only way we can do that is by working together. You guys are going to be on the front line and able to help us make it happen. And the most important thing is that we keep people healthy so that we can do that. Things could change so quickly, as you know. We don't want to be that ski area that has pictures of people being too close together, not social distancing, not wearing masks. We will be shut down very quickly. So nobody wants to be that company, and this is what we're doing as we go forward to try to make sure that doesn't happen. So obviously consistent safety protocols. We're going to go hard at the beginning. If we can back off as the season goes, great, but we've got to be really strict right from the start. And we've been trying to do that this summer with employees to make sure that we're setting the example and we're all doing the same things to be able to work together to do that. We did spend some capital on technology that I'll talk about to reduce touch points, to have more reservations ahead of time, so less contact with people once they're here. And it's really about communicating, setting expectations. It's hugely important that we let people know before they get here what to expect, because a lot of things are going to be pretty different than what I'll talk about. It works something. Yeah. So a few kind of fun things that we've done. Maybe you saw these white benches out front. They're actually heated. These are the same as you see in the NFL games, without the little helmet thing on the back. But they actually work. We had it on a pretty cold day. And this heats up. Heat comes out of here. The seat itself is warm. They're 12 feet long. We've got two out here on the deck. And we put one down by the CLC. The CLC will not be open for kids this winter, so we put it outside, thinking that hopefully is a nice place for them to take a break and warm up a little bit. So we've got benches, we've got a bunch of heaters that will be out there when it's not windy, hopefully will be helpful. We've got 2 propane fire pits that will be out there, and the 2, of course, wood fire pits. We're trying to do whatever we can to help people stay outside and not come indoors, because we will have capacity restrictions. So this is what we spent a lot of our summer trying to figure out. How do we get to a number that reduces our capacity to be able to spread people out, and what does that mean? Ski areas work with comfortable carrying capacity. Pre-pandemic, we all talked about comfortable carrying capacity and what kind of facilities you need to meet those requirements. Windham is fortunate that we are pretty well balanced in what we have between number of parking spaces, the size of our base lodge, the seats in the cafeteria, seats in restaurants, chairlift capacity, and then ski capacity. So acreage for the number of skiers to be able to spread out. Before North Castle purchased the mountain, when they did their due diligence, they hired a company to put a lot of information together, but one of the key things was comfortable carrying capacity. And they came out very favorably, saying Windham is pretty well balanced. And you know, you've all been here on days when it's not comfortable carrying capacity, right? Those peak days are way over that, and that's by design, because no ski area is built to handle 40% more on 10 days that it's really needed. So the way we get to this is we look at our 14 to 16 busiest days of the season and look at what those numbers are. And below that is really, or what that number is, the smallest is the comfortable carrying capacity. And it measures all of these things. And so, next slide, ma'am, please. So now we know what the number is. We know we need to reduce that. We need to get down to a certain level. So how do we do that? We can't just say, okay, we're going to let the first 3,000 people in the door and that's it, because as we all know, it doesn't work that way. And these are the stakeholders that we have to consider. Obviously, season passes, which we continue to sell, and are right now 25% ahead of same day last year. We will easily exceed what we sold last year. We've anticipated probably 15% more passes. That could change depending on what goes on in the next few weeks. But we know we have a lot of pass holders. We have made promises to pass holders that they will not need to make a reservation. They don't need to tell us when they're coming here. They can show up at any time, which we think is a real selling point for them. Obviously, employees, volunteers, dependents, we'll talk more about that. ASF is a significant part of our community that we want to make sure goes forward, and we have done that with them. They've reduced the number of lessons that they'll be teaching, but we wanted to make sure that that program carries on. Lodging, we have guaranteed if people stay in our lodging at the Wynwood or at Whisper Creek, which now has a lot more short-term rentals, they will be guaranteed a lift ticket. We also made that promise to 7 or 8 local lodging properties who we felt it was important from a community standpoint that their guests will have guaranteed tickets as well if they stay in those facilities. So that's a huge selling point because, as I'm about to tell you, there will not be tickets available if you walk up to a window on peak days. Groups, you won't see really many at all. You will not have bus groups this year. Nobody wants to ride on a bus anyway, so it wasn't really us telling them to stay away. That just kind of happened. But that'll be a significant difference when we used to have 10 to 15 buses on a peak day. We look at marketing and trade. We used to trade a lot of our advertising and marketing promotions were traded for tickets. We've done no trade this year. So anything we will do from a marketing standpoint will be paid for, as opposed to putting those tickets out there that were good at any time. Things like the Warren Miller movies, where we gave people tickets when they showed up, a ton of those promotions we have completely eliminated. So a lot of those comp tickets, promotional tickets, just aren't there this year as another way to control what we're doing. We are doing friends and family tickets for pass holders. That's another attractive part of being a pass holder. They're available unlimited days. We're not having to make a reservation for sale until December 20th. If you're a pass holder, you can purchase up to 5 of them. After December 20th, when you buy a friends and family ticket, it has to be for a specific date so we know when you're coming. So we're trying to communicate that as much as we can as well. Races and events remains to be seen. Obviously, there'll be a lot less than there have been. Racers are still trying to figure out if they're willing to travel to other ski areas. A lot of it will kind of be intramural. Can't say that. Competing against each other here with different age groups rather than traveling to other ski areas. And then, obviously, the new for us this year, that's kind of the wild card, is Icon Pass. So this is the first season we are part of the Icon Pass. We are a partner resort, which means we're not owned by Alterra, but we're a partner resort on the pass. So if you have an Icon base pass, you now have 5 days to ski at Windham. If you have a full Icon pass, you have 7 days to choose to ski at Windham. Alterra gave all owned and partner resorts the option of either insisting on reservations from Icon Pass holders or not. We said yes, we'd like to know if they're coming. So if you have an Icon Pass, you have to make a reservation through the Alterra website, or the Icon website, to come here. And you can book your 5 days now at Windham. It's already open, and we've already seen over 1,000 visits for the season that people have booked. So that will help us understand how many people are going to be here, and we've set a maximum number of Icon Pass holders on those peak days. Actually, for every day, but I'll tell you about green days, there's a lot more available. Icon Pass holders also have the ability to bring a friend and purchase an Icon Buddy ticket, which is 25% off the window price for that day. So I show you all this just to help explain the formulas that we go through to try to figure out how to limit our capacity. Because if we just open it up to all these groups, which is what we've done forever, and we all spend our careers trying to bring as many people as we can to a ski area on any given day. It's been a bit of a reversal to try to figure out how to back off that. The question?
You said on peak days there'll be no ticket sales. So you mean like holiday weeks?
Well, let me show you that. Good question. So what we've created is red days and green days. So on a red day, the short explanation is you will not be able to walk up to the ticket window and buy a ticket. On a green day, at this point, we anticipate that you will be able to do that, but we still encourage you to buy tickets ahead of time online. You'll notice that our red days start, this is November, from November 20th through December 6th, we've said they're red days, largely because we want to make sure we have enough terrain to spread people out. And we're not going to open this year with one strip of white down Whistler and one lift. We want to make sure we have enough terrain to be able to spread people out, and at least 2 lifts before we open. Ted will talk about that in more detail when he gets there. So, yes, this is pretty much every weekend. And holidays, obviously, Christmas week, February vacation. And we have eliminated a lot of products like triple play that was valid on peak days, on red days in the past, doesn't exist anymore. We're selling what's called a Green Day 3 play, which is only valid on green days and is for sale now. But there really are no other discounted products on red days. So we factor in all those stakeholders that I showed you before. We estimate how many pass holders are going to be here on a given day. We can look at that history from scans at the gate. And we can estimate how many pass holders are going to be here, how many employees are on the hill, all those other groups, lodging properties, we've guessed how many people, Icon, we've set a certain number, and that gets us to how many tickets we can actually sell for that day. So we're selling tickets sometime this week. They'll go live online. And you can look at any date. You've been able to do this for the last couple of years, but obviously this year it's even more important. So it's good we've had that experience to be able to do this. But when we do go live, if you haven't seen this before, you can look at a calendar for the entire winter and look at a date that says there are 5 tickets available at this price. Once those 5 tickets are sold, the price goes up. We have 10 tiers behind the scenes for every day of the season. And the price gets more expensive as those tickets sell, similar to what airlines do in a lot of other industries. And so the big thing we're trying to communicate to people is plan ahead. The earlier you buy, the better deal you're going to get. And especially on red days, they're extremely limited. That's the message that's so important, because we don't want people showing up on a Saturday morning thinking they can just walk up with their 3 kids and buy tickets for the whole family, because we will not be selling those tickets. If you have a package, we have a certain number of tickets available also for a package. If you've got a lift with a lesson, or a lift with lesson and rentals, or a ticket and just rentals. So all of that math is what we've been playing with, and we continue to all summer, which is why our revenue is projected to be significantly down, because a good portion of our winter revenue is those day tickets that are the highest priced when people walk up to a window. So you can see why it's a different kind of year. In addition to that, we don't anticipate as much, obviously, bar business, food business, and those kind of things. So we also are insisting that people make reservations for rentals and for lessons online. So when you go online and you buy a ticket for that day, if you're going to want rentals, you book them online, you tell us your height, weight, age, everything else. The rental shop process is set up very differently this year. You'll walk up to a window outside, the same thing we did this summer for biking. We've got a lot more windows right outside the rental shop where the deli used to be. And you say, I've made a reservation, we hand you your paperwork, you come in, get your boots, your skis are preset because we have all your information. You grab your skis, poles, helmet, and out the door. We moved everything around. We're not doing the boot bridge this year because we don't want to have the contact involved, so we'll put your boots out on the edge of the bridge and you take them and try them on. Lessons, snow school will be very different this year. We'll know who's coming. We'll know how many privates. Groups are limited to a maximum of 10 people and 6 kids at a time. That's a state guideline. That's not us setting that. So we're not sure what to expect in terms of that. But we also know that the majority of our renters are people who buy tickets. There are a lot of pass holders that rent. So that business will be significantly reduced as well. So hopefully all that goes online this week. So what else are we doing? The other big message is that you no longer walk into the lodge and put your bag down and get your boots on and put your cooler on the table. We are sending a very clear message that you have to boot up with your car and go direct to lift. We have added 3 ticket kiosks, and we will be outside. We bought 3 additional pickup boxes. So anybody who buys one of those dynamic tickets online puts the QR code on their phone up to the pickup box, and their ticket spits out, and they're direct to lift. But this is the big message. We're changing the upper parking lot here to allow for more drop-off and boot up. So when you pull in this year, valet will be on the upper side, the back side toward Whisper Creek. You pull in for valet there. And then if you're not valet, you come around to this side where there'll be a lot more space for drop-off. So there'll be 2 or 3 lanes over here for people to be able to, what we're encouraging is drop everybody off but the driver. The driver parks and will shuttle you up with a shuttle with the windows open and half the seats that it used to have. So we'll still be running those buses, but we're trying to get people to drop off so we can reduce that capacity and really make it work. One-way traffic inside, wherever we can. Downstairs will look very different. There'll be one door going in. And we encourage people when they buy their food to go out the back door above the patrol room and go out that way. There are, as you saw coming up today, extremely limited seats down there. Once those are full and there's a certain number of people in line and going through, that's it. We won't let any more people in that space. Restrooms will be difficult because we know everybody will be in at some point. So that, again, is one-way traffic. And we're going to just have to kind of pay attention to how that flows and how many people are here at any given time. No community shuttle this year. It just didn't seem to make sense. Nobody wants to ride on a bus. And the big change is no night skiing. I know. Yesterday, everybody clapped when they skied. So that's and night skiing has been kind of declining for several years, pre-pandemic. A lot of business was based on schools, and a lot of schools have cut that budget for night skiing. We just haven't been here. So we had to make a decision about either really ramping up night skiing and selling it and doing races and those kind of things, or this seemed to be the year that made sense to just not do it. We're concerned about having enough staff, one, even without night skiing, and that obviously makes it more difficult. It gives us more time to clean the building, and night skiing is a lot more than just you guys and lifts. It's rentals and retail and food and beverage. When we're open. So it's really a significant impact and a significant help for us this year to not be doing that going forward.
But just for this year, or we'll revisit next year?
We'll revisit and see what we think. Yeah, I mean, obviously the world will be different a year from now, and we'll see what's going on. Okay, one thumbs down. So what's food and beverage going to look like? The key here, as we've always tried in the past, even in a normal year, we always tried to spread crowds out. We never did that very successfully, because particularly at Windham, the culture has been that you eat with your family. Everybody wants to eat with their kids or hang out together, and it's a social time. And as you well know, the best time to be on the mountain is between 12 and 1. That's one of the shortest lift lines, but we seem to have a hard time convincing people of that. Well, this year, we're scheduling all programs and all lessons so that we can encourage that. So all of the programs will have staggered start times. Some of them will start before 8 o'clock. There'll be early loads for a lot of those programs to be able to space them out. And then some will start later. The goal is to either have them done before noon or out on the hill during that lunch hour to spread people out. Lessons, the same thing. Rather than everybody coming in at 11:45, that's what we hope will spread people out. And then the next goal is to get people to eat outside. So the lunchbox, which is out here all summer for the bike park, will stay open through the winter. The barbecue will be open more often. The umbrella bar will be open. As you know, we now have to serve food with any alcohol. So we're figuring out what that might look like. Every time you buy a beer, you're going to get something with it. It'll be a beer and a hot dog, or a beer and a sandwich, or a beer and something. And we're looking at additional food trucks on the patio, maybe out front here by the ticket window, wherever we can provide outdoor food for people to keep them outside. Mountain Express, another thing you'll be happy to hear is there are no more trays in Mountain Express. We took them away mainly for sledding, and then we can do something different here. But everything from Mountain Express will be grab and go, so it'll be packaged for you. There's no line. You don't walk down the line with your tray and order from a salad bar or soup or whatever. It'll be packaged for you in a bag or a box and handed to you to go, whether you're sitting at a table or going outside. And a lot of this, we're working on apps still to be able to pre-order ahead. Seasons will be all reservations. You'll have to have a reservation to come up here. We're changing the menu significantly so it's quicker turnaround so we can get people in and out. We have contracted this year. We've made some big changes in food and beverage. We've contracted with a company called Centerplate, which does food and beverage at about 12 skiers in the Northeast. We've been talking with them for several years about what might work for a partnership, and this seemed the right time to bring them in. So they bring incredible resources. They bring a lot more ideas. They have experience working through with the pandemic through the whole last 6 months. They've already shown value. So our food and beverage employees who work at Seasons, Mountain Express, and all of the outdoor venues will now be employees of Centerplate. You won't notice the difference, and they barely will either. But their paycheck comes through Centerplate. Centerplate does all the buying of food, where they have an incredible advantage because of their size. So the goal is really to improve the overall F&B experience. The other part of that is that for the tavern and the club, we've partnered with a New York restaurateur who has a few very successful restaurants in New York City, and a chef that he's working with who won't be here full time, but will be consulting with us on particularly the club kitchen, and the tavern will have a whole new menu to be open 7 days a week. So big changes in F&B that we're looking forward to. But as this continues to change, right now, New York, as you know, is saying 50% capacity in restaurants. That could change today. It could change a week from now. That somebody could come to us and say, you can't allow anybody in the base lodge. We're preparing for that and having all-to-go foods. For right now, we're preparing for 50% here. You saw the number of seats downstairs, and we're going to have to manage to that. We're encouraging people to eat in their car, or encouraging them to go to their homes for lunch, whatever we can do to keep people out of the building. So again, the key here is letting people know before they get here as much as possible. I can't stress that enough, because we don't want everybody to show up and expect to be able to sit down for an hour and a half, 2 hours so they can get warm. We're not going to allow coolers in the building. You just can't walk up and put your crock pot in the outlet and hang out. There won't be any reserving tables. A lot of this is stuff we wanted to do anyway, so maybe the pandemic gives us that opportunity to really change things. I think that covers this. There'll be more information. Employees. So since the CLC will not be open, because we can't have 100 snotty-nosed kids running around in one space, they will start outside. There'll be reservations only, and they'll be out still on Windham. So we're converting CLC into an employee break area, because we don't want employees taking up space in Mountain Express or here. So there'll be food available for employees out of the CLC. There's a little kitchen in the back there if you haven't seen that. And they'll be providing meals for employees, and they'll have to rotate in and out as well. But we needed a spot for people to take their half-hour break. And I think Maggie's going to talk more about specifically the break rooms and those kind of things. So that's F&B, pretty different level.
Mr. Lee will still be here.
Yes, thank you.
That was a question yesterday. So.
And the waffle cabinet.
And the waffle cabinet.
We'll both be here. So next is 3500 Club. Along the lines of not booting up in the lodge, there will be no booting up in the 3500 Club. And we've sent this message to anybody who has a locker in 3500 Club. You can keep your skis, board, poles, helmets, whatever you want. But we've taken all the benches out of 3500 Club. We've taken all the tables and chairs out, so there's no loitering. And if you have a locker on this side, you come in the door here. If you have a locker on the other side, you come in the door by the CLC. And one-way traffic. You go to your locker, you grab your skis, and you go out the middle door, and that's it. So surprisingly, strong number of people have kept their lockers because it's still a pretty big convenience not to have to take your skis and board home. Some people have said, no thanks, I like it because of putting my boots on. We also anticipate a pretty strong overnight ski valet business in the rental shop. We've put more racks there, and they work out of the building out here that has a simulator in it also. But we will be selling that as a plus for people who don't want to carry their skis overnight. Obviously, that's included if you rent skis or board for out of the rental shop for the weekend. You can keep them there, no charge, on Saturday night. But this is the big change in 3500 Club that we're trying to make sure we get the word out. So that's a pretty different winter for people, who are used to coming in this building and really being social and hanging out. It's different. You notice the stage is gone here. We don't plan on having any bands this winter because we can't have a bar hangout. So what we're going to do more of is meals to go at the end of the day. Out of Last Run downstairs. Last Run will be open 7 days a week. Last year it was weekends only, but that coffee was popular. It's a good place to get in and out. So that will be open more often with some more product available. And just a whole different scenario. The retail shop will only allow a certain amount of people in at a time, and there'll literally be somebody at the door counting those numbers, come in and shop, and when somebody leaves, somebody else can come in. So every department has created entirely new operating plans to get us through the winter, and they continue to evolve. Maggie's going to tell you more details about patrol operating plans and where we go.
My question yesterday afternoon was about the simulator, actually. Is that still going to open the same kind of way as last year?
Yeah, it'll be similar. It'll be similar. We haven't figured out those details. I think ASF will continue to be heavily involved and probably operate it. It'll be used a lot by the race program and coaches.
Yeah, we were out there yesterday and someone was in there, so that question actually came up yesterday.
Yeah, that was some ASF folks.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, so I will pass that along.
Okay, good.
What about uphill?
Oh, thank you.
What was the question?
The question was about uphill traffic this winter, which we anticipate seeing significant demand. We won't be the only ones out there anymore. So we are allowing it, but we have now designated trails that we're going to tell people to use, and they are listed on the new trail map. And we're going to make sure that you guys are thoroughly versed and know where people are supposed to be. We are also going to make sure if you have an uphill pass or ticket, we do sell a ticket for the day and we sell an uphill only season pass. If you have a Windham season pass, you can uphill at any time. But we're asking people, we're going to give them something very visible. We haven't figured out exactly what it is yet. It'll probably be an orange armband or wristband or something, so that when you're patrolling, you'll know that they have something. You won't have to stop and talk to everybody you see on the mountain. And the suggestion yesterday was to give you folks a little card to be able to give to people that don't have that band that says, here's what you need to do. Go down to tickets and get the armband or get whatever it is so that we know next time we don't have to bother you.
Chris will use triage tape. But we tried not to use black because that was scary.
Even like our marketing records, we don't use.
Yeah.
I know that I didn't get to touch on this yesterday. I know that in the past, for us, while we're out there, we see someone walking up, we don't usually harass them, you stop and say, hey, do you have a ticket? Hey, do you have a pass? Or we see the same person every day walking up and we know that that person has a ticket or has a pass. We will see an increase in those people, so we just need to make sure that we're more diligent than we have in the past. We sit there, Kevin, sometimes the one guy walks up 3 times a day. We know he has a pass, we've talked to him, but now he might be joined by 5 other people. So, we just need to make sure that we're being as diligent.
The biggest thing would be that they go on the designated trail.
Right, and, for us, we just have to be more diligent than we've been in the past.
What are the designated trails offering?
We wrap around, what's next, wrap around to the top, and then windfall, wipeout, way out, lower wipeout, all the way down, snowboarding.
Do they need to stay like skiers right or skiers left? Is that
Side of the trail.
Side of the trail, yep.
either side or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Maggie,
Yes.
we run into a lot of uphill people that sweep. Buzzy, go in front.
Oh, so his question is, we run into a lot of uphill people at sweep. That policy will still apply, same policy as long as.
We can allow them and just say, hey, look, patrol is done for the day, you're on your own. Cell phone 911.
Correct.
Those suggestions. I think we're going to see a lot of that.
If we start to see a larger number, for right now, usually at sweep, it's only 1 or 2 people that we see snowshoeing or walking up. If we have a C group of 20 heading up at 4 o'clock, then we might need to make different arrangements for
I
that.
have a feeling you see a lot of headlamps.
Tom, you know,
Jeff,
Just saying.
Speak up.
what's your plan to screen for COVID for staff and customers? And what's the plan to respond when you get a positive case?
Great question. So, employees, we have just signed up with a company to do an online screen. So you will all, before you come to work, before you come here from home, you will go online and answer the questions that we've all been answering all summer. And if you answer correctly and you're healthy, you will get a green check. It will be on your phone. We will get that report here. When you come to work, you can show Maggie your green check mark to prove that you've been screened. And it also has some great follow-up. So if it shows up that you get a red X, you will get a follow-up phone call from a healthcare professional, which is something that's different than a lot of these programs that are out there. So they're going to call and ask you, details of, do you have a fever, what's going on, whatever it is. In some cases, they will clear people to come to work. They've shown the companies that they're working with that 30 to 40% of those people who initially have a red X can get turned around and come to work anyway. And if not, they'll make a recommendation, you need to go get a test, you need to see a doctor, whatever it might be. It takes it out of our hands to make that call, and it helps all of you guys to know exactly what's happening. So Maggie will be able to view a report of how many people that are coming to work that day have checked in and that they have that clearance. So that's employees. We're excited about that because for the summer we've been doing it on a clipboard and a piece of paper and trying to keep track of all that stuff. That actually is going to start this week. We just made that happen. For guests, at this point, we're not going through that routine. As far as contact tracing, we have a plan for each one of those groups that I showed. So pass holders, obviously, we know when they go through a gate, we know how to contact them. If it's a friends and family ticket with a pass holder, we'll go back to the pass holder and make sure that they contact that family or friend. Same with tickets that are bought online. We have all of that information, so we know who's here on any given day. We've kind of gone down through every scenario and figured out how we can trace that back. The one question would be people who come here who are not skiers and want to hang out in the base lodge. The first thing we're doing is discouraging them from doing that at all. because there are no seats that we want people just hanging out in the base lodge during the day. So we say you can drop your kids off, you can come back and pick them up, but there's nowhere to hang out. We have actually given ASF family, when they drop their kids off, they used to hang out in the ASF building. That has been closed except for certain people coming through. They're actually meeting their students outside and going direct to snow. So we've offered them the tavern during the day to go and hang out, those family members who have dropped their kids off who were non-skiers. And that's just kind of a special arrangement for them as an example. But that's where we are, and all of these plans are in writing because the state could come here at any time and ask to see that. And we continue to get more detail than where we are.
Johan, do you have any questions from people on the?
Negative. They're all very happy.
So does it include volunteers too, that questionnaire? So like
Yes.
before I come up, I have to.
Yep, I'll be sending that. It's a web-based questionnaire, so I'll be sending that out to Joe Sweeney, and he'll be distributing it to everyone. And probably once a week, I will be sending it out. Sending the link out. I'll send it out once in the beginning of the season, but it'll probably go out once a week because obviously people lose things in their email. It's not always there. And some people, I'm not coming up this weekend. I don't need it. Or this week, I don't need it. So I'll try to send it out weekly as well so that it's fresh in everyone's mind. But you won't be permitted to be here unless I have that questionnaire from you every day.
Chip, you mentioned about the comps yesterday, so I think maybe these people would like to hear that too.
Sure. So one of the group of stakeholders was employees and dependents and comp tickets for employees, and we really tossed that one around because we've had such a hard time getting these numbers down and trying to maximize the number of paid tickets that we can put out there. But we felt it was really important as a benefit for volunteers and for paid staff that we continue to provide dependent benefits and comp tickets. So those policies haven't changed this year. They're the same. There are still the same blackout dates. They're the same 50% off tickets and full comp tickets. What we really are hoping to get a handle on is abuse of that because it's so important. Anybody who's out there. So we just ask you to help us. We want you to have that opportunity. One of the things that I felt was important is that that's one of the reasons a lot of us work at a ski area. I worked at 3 different ski areas. My kids never paid for a lift ticket growing up. That was really important to us as a family. And I really want to make sure that people have that opportunity for working here. So that's still the same. You just need to make sure that you plan ahead. The HR setup will be different. Diane will be at what used to be the guest services desk. There's plexiglass set up there now, so rather than everybody going into that HR office, you'll go to that guest services desk and deal with her. She'll be there from 7 to 10 in the morning, and then I think again in the afternoon from 1 to 3.
A question yesterday too afterwards was that guest services desk is going to be Diane. Is there a guest services desk? Is there a new guest services desk that we can refer people to if they have a question, concern, or are they going right to the special tickets?
So guest services is now part of the ticket windows that are out front.
Okay.
So all of those people that are cashiers will also be guest services. The call center is now staffed, which is in the White House, the Bentley House down below. It's crazy busy right now. But again, we're trying to keep people out in front at last run. Beyond last run, there will be employees only this year. We don't want guests wandering in that part. That restroom behind guest services won't be open for guests. And those doors will be closed and we'll say limited access. And if you walk downstairs, you'll see there's also kind of a blockade at the bottom of the stairs take you down here to be able to keep guests out. So employees, obviously, if they need access to patrol, you can obviously go down there, but Maggie's going to talk more about access to patrol.
Just to clarify the passes, so if you have a family member that wants to come up when you're here, do I need to notify somebody so you can count that as a number ticket for your number of people that are on the hill that day?
So that is part of it, but also part of that was going into human resources to get that ticket. A lot of the times we would call down or someone would stop in and say, hey, my friend or my family member is going to come into human resources and pick up a ticket. We want to avoid that, the extra people coming in and out of HR. So the employee or your spouse will be permitted to pick up a ticket for a friend or family at that window from that designated time. So if you're coming between that designated time, 7 a.m. and 10 a.m. or 1 p.m. and 3 p.m., you don't need to notify someone. You just need to come between those times. If you can't come between those times, you can call and make an appointment with Diane or someone in human resources so that they can accommodate you outside that time. But it's to keep track of people on the hill, but also to minimize the in and out of the human resources office as well.
Yeah, they can let us know about it. That's helpful. Anything else? One other question that came up yesterday that I'm happy to address was the decision about the blue flag at the summit this summer that you all saw communication about. So I'll just address that here. And I did yesterday with a much bigger group. So that, as you know, the blue flag and the red line flag have flown for many years at the summit, and we all understood what those meant, what they stood for, and we were proudly flown. This spring, summer, when I think that George Floyd was really the first incident that got national attention and really everybody started paying attention to. At that time, we as a mountain, management, ownership, put out a statement on social media that was fairly generic that said we support diversity and inclusion as everything was starting to evolve in the country. After we posted that statement, we had several comments saying, if you really believe that, why are you flying the blue flag? That was news to me, to be frank. Why are they questioning that? And I think to a lot of people at the time that was something new. So we did a lot of research. We talked to a lot of people to try to understand why that question was being asked, why is it questionable, and what came back was a lot of different interpretations of that flag, and a lot of people looking at it differently. And unfortunately, that flag being used by groups for other reasons than what it was originally intended to be used for. So the decision was made at the time that we didn't think it was right to fly that flag because people looked at it differently. And it represents different things to different people. And we are about inclusion, fun. The last thing we want to do is be involved in politics. Several years ago, when news networks started becoming much more political and on one side or the other, at all of our bars, restaurants, golf course, tavern, we said no news stations, only entertainment. So it was either sports or skiing or something that wasn't going to lean one way or the other. And that's how this decision was made. The flag wasn't even flying at the time, as you know. At the end of the season, it comes down. There's nothing going on. We weren't open for the bike park. There was nothing happening. So we probably didn't handle it as well as we could have, particularly with many of you who are involved with law enforcement and first responders. I met, after that decision was made, with the chief of Windham Police, with the sheriff, with the head of the local state police, and numerous other people who wanted to understand why we had made that decision. Most of those conversations were very productive, and I was glad to have them and get to know those people better, and we understood each other well. They explained that they had many members of law enforcement who did not agree at all with that decision, but for the most part, when we explained where we were coming from, it was well understood. There were people who only wanted to yell and scream at me about it, or at others here. I'm happy to talk to anybody. It's not productive to me to just have a one-sided, you're an idiot for doing this kind of conversation. So, we will be putting a plaque on the building honoring law enforcement, firefighters, first responders, which is intended to be the same message that flying the blue flag and the red flag meant at one point. as the summer went on, obviously this became a much bigger deal across the country, and I think a lot of people had the same education that we did when it first happened. We were really early on in all of that, and we saw those demonstrations and protests and decisions made one way or the other about that flag continue to escalate. So that's how that came about. I'm happy still to have any conversations with any of you about that going forward. But I hope you understand and appreciate that. There are several things that came out of that whole thing, one of which was DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion training for the management team here. We went through a pretty serious training program, which was very revealing and I think helpful to all of us, and we tried to pass that along. And the other thing is a whole new vision statement and mission statement for the company that mostly talk about fun, recreation, and being inclusive and being a fun spot for everybody to enjoy. So it really was a healthy, although painful at times, summer of going through that, I think, and hopefully for the country as well. We're a microcosm of trying to figure out what we can do to contribute. So, any other questions about anything? I'm going to turn it over to Ted, if not.
We don't have anything on the computer yet, huh? Yep.
Everybody's happy.
So thanks for being here. I'm really excited about making this season happen. I know you're going to help us get there. I appreciate your commitment. It's going to be a different kind of year, but hopefully a few months from now we'll be celebrating a good winter and moving on. So I'm going to turn it over to Ted to talk about Mountain Ops and what's going on there. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we're going to talk about some more of the same that Chip was talking about, but with different directions. And this is a year that is like no other. As other people who have been here longer than me, that guy in the yellow vest, can attest to, every year, ski patrol refreshers to start off of the season. You get excited about it, and this year it's kind of like, holy mackerel, what are we going to expect? And we still don't know what to expect moving forward, whether it's decisions that are made for us or decisions that we make. So, as Chip has said earlier, we've gone through a lot of thought process into every single thing we've done to make this place as viable as possible, but as safe as possible. And we don't know all the answers. We're moving forward, we're going to constantly make changes. So to talk about chairlift capacity, that whole thing has changed. In the last couple of years, we've increased our chairlift capacity when we're running 100% to over 19,000 people an hour. We'll be running less than half of that now, which means our lift lines are still going to be fairly long. But we need to have social distancing. We need to keep people apart. So our lift lines are going to be set up with the normal corral, the normal maze, but in between each line will be a 6-foot barrier. So it takes up a huge amount of space. So we can't use the same space that we've used in the past. We've been out there with cones, with ropes, it's unbelievable the process that we've gone through to try to figure this out. So first off, lift lines will be reworked. They have been reworked, and they'll be reworked again. Guests that come here can ride with the people they came here with. Or, if they feel safe with somebody else, we're not the COVID police. They can ride with whoever they want to ride with.
Are you eliminating the singles line?
No. Singles line is going to be probably doubled because people who come here that want to ride safely and not ride next to other people are going to be able to do that. So, double chairs and triple chairs have become single chairs. Quads and the 6-pack have become double chairs unless you're willing to ride with other people. And you need to let the attendants know that up front. Patrollers can ride with other patrollers. They do not have to ride with the public, as we've been trying to tell everybody in the past. We've been beating that into your heads, and now we're taking it back. So anybody that wants to ride, I mean, it's either end of the chair. Unless you want to ride B-lift, you ride it by yourself.
Trevor?
Yes.
In order to save chairs on a busy day, could we load the chair up or not?
Yeah. If you feel safe riding with those people, it's up to you.
We could load that chair.
Yes. By the way, loading a chair, you must have a mask on. Everybody. Guests, employees, doesn't matter. Students and instructors, it's being presented to the groups that they can ride together. I'm sure there are going to be some parents that disagree with that. They need to figure that out. We're still working on that part. So this is literally the map that we came up with. So you're basically on the mountain looking down at where C-lift is, where F-lift is, where D-lift is, and where the new trail is. This has actually been revamped since it was drawn up originally. You can see with the darker lines. Pretty much because we cannot use the same footprint or format that we've used in the past for the corrals, people coming down the mountain are going to be skiing or riding into the mazes rather than coming down and making a turn into the mazes. So if we look at F-lift here, you'll see this is the singles line, 6 foot space, and then these line another line which will be a double, 6 foot space, and then this will be where multiple people, quads or triples or whatever. Same thing on this side, but it will be coming kind of in this direction rather than this direction. Does that make sense?
No. So you come right in line with the lift and go right into your chute.
Parallel to the lift.
It'll be clear when they all set it up.
Yeah, once it's set up, it'll
Which
be
means that
clear.
we're not going to worry about pulling rep because
No. That will all be wide open. That's all right up here.
that's why you're rubber.
That's all up here. So you can come across. This is where you're normal with transportation.
It's awesome.
The other thing we're going to be doing is there's a tower up here above F-lift. There will be a large banner that says C-lift this way, and another large banner that says F-lift that way.
Would we be able to, would patrollers be able to load from the left-hand side of that lift,
Yep.
open space?
Where the P's,
Here,
Okay, yeah.
here.
It's really important that I know I drill license to everyone's head all the time, but it's very important that we go through the RFID gate because we are make sure that we are counted as people on the property. So it's imperative that we will be loading on that side of the gate and coming through. Kind of like the old way where we'll stop traffic, the chair of us will go, but we will go through the gate. The only time that we won't be loading through the gate is with sleds or massive amounts of equipment like bamboo or bulkier fences and stuff where we can't get through the RFID.
One of the things the state is requiring from us is, just like everything else, a plan needs to be approved. So we send a plan in, they approve it. They will come here, and they've already been here. They will look at the plan, they'll come here, and they will start just looking around to make sure that we're following the plan. If we're not, they'll shut us down. They have to make no qualms about that. We need to make sure that we stick to it.
Are you keeping all 6 dates on the 6 pack?
Yes.
Okay, so you're not reducing it down to 3.
We're not reducing the numbers because there are going to be times where 6 people will go through it. We did reduce it during the summertime.
State won't shut you down.
So I'm new, so I'm kind of unfamiliar with the mountain. But we're gonna have people skiing right off the slope, right into the lift line with no place to kind of
There'll be
break.
There'll be
No,
slow
no,
signs.
It's flat.
Oh, it's flat, okay.
Flat, right, you'll see it right out here through the window, it actually, the chair, there used to be a chairlift right there.
Okay.
So it's flat. And we have slow signs always in those locations as well, so they will be just as prominent there.
There's
So.
plenty of room to slow down. And there will be those that don't.
Right, of course.
It's easy right to do.
That's what the clock tower is for.
Right. Next.
You're old enough.
There, yeah. So capital improvements we did this summer. Before COVID, remember that time? We were in an automation mode. We still are. We're actually in it more than we were before. Last year, we put in a lot of automated guns on Lower Whistler with the intent of automating Upper Whistler, which has been done this year. So Whistler is now automated from the top of the wall all the way to the bottom. We put in automated guns on Upper Wolverine and Lower Wolverine. Lower Wolverine is fully automated. Upper Wolverine will be continued next year. So it's part of that process. The thought is that we need to be able to open as much terrain as we possibly can when we're ready to open, so that we can get people spread out. The whole thing is, when people come here, let them have space to go. We can't just open Whistler from top to bottom and expect that's what everyone's going to do. We know how crowded that's going to be. Even on a very limited basis, it's still going to be very crowded. So we bought 84 new guns this year. We put them in places where the guns that they replaced were actually still good. So we moved those guns also. We also had other guns that we had in places that really weren't being used to their fullest capability. So we moved them around too. We moved 189 guns into places where they weren't. We've upgraded some of the guns so that they're far more efficient. We've gotten rid of a lot of the inefficient guns. The whole idea behind that is the inefficient guns took up a lot of energy that the efficient guns, you can run 2 or 3 guns per. So in a normal, for instance, 2 years ago, we could run about 120 to 130 guns on a normal day. Now we can run between 150 and 160. So it enables us to open up a lot more terrain a lot faster. Next. Just touch it. This is Lower Wolverine. That's how fast we can start guns up. Where to light that number of guns would have taken a half an hour to 45 minutes doing it manually. Now we're just getting on the radio and tell them, start them up, they hit a button, and they all come on almost at the same time. We've continued the groomer takeover that we've been doing, the rotation. Every year we get rid of our oldest groomer, which is at that point 5 seasons old, and replace it with a brand new one. This year we got another winch cat. Sea-lift upgrades, everybody remember Sea-lift last year? The noise. So this year we had it completely revamped, completely realigned. We brought a different company in that specialized in doing that. They did a great job. We put underskins on. You can kind of see where the wood is underneath there to help block out the noise also, because it was getting amplified down from the motor room. We also had it painted from top to bottom, literally top to bottom. And it looks great. It sounds great. You won't recognize it. The new lighted trail map. This map is in the same spot where the old one was. It's smaller. It takes up a smaller footprint, so it's not blocking view from the lodge anymore. Even though there'll be a lot less people in the lodge looking up. Oh well. But the unique part about this map is each trail, it's the same trail map that you'll have when you get the paperwork. And you can open that up, figure out where you want to go, and then look up at this trail map. And there are red and green lights on the trail map. So if you say I want to ski wraparound, you can look up at that map and look at wraparound, and it will either be lit up or with green or red. It's red, obviously, it's closed. Yep. Right now, it's all red.
Why?
But you can answer that question. And that's our new piston bully winch. The thing about winches, they're people who don't understand what a winch actually does. They think we only use them on steep trails, but you can use them on pretty much any trail. What it does is the winch is actually, it doesn't just tow the machine up the hill. That's really not what it's designed to do. It just gives it a little extra so that it doesn't spin out. And anytime you're out pushing snow, the tracks tend to spin. I mean, it's a 400 horsepower motor that is turning those tracks. So there's a lot of torque, and if you just hit the fuel, they're going to spin a little bit. On the lower mountain, it's not a big deal. On the upper mountain, or on anything that is loose, you're going to create ruts. And if you create ruts, everybody knows what happens when you ski. It's not a pleasant experience. So winches really do help out in more ways than just on steep trails. Robin?
Are we looking into the electric?
No. Did we? Yes. They're great. It's they really don't save a huge amount. The payback on them is about 25 years.
Okay.
They're like $600 grand. If they come down in price or if they start, the thing about the electrics are they still maintain the diesel motor, and the motor, rather than driving the tracks, turns into a generator, which is generating the electric that's needed for the two motors that are running the two tracks. It's a great machine, but it's not really feasible business-wise.
These all have the tier 4.
Yeah, these are very, very efficient motors. They all are all tier 4. They have more power, they're more efficient, and they're more environmentally friendly than anything that's ever been made before.
Still a diesel?
It's still diesel, but it's you could. The exhaust has nothing coming out.
Yeah, there's so many bells and whistles.
Everything is collected, which means we do have to flush the systems. There's a process we have to go through, which is kind of a pain in the neck, but the systems do have to be flushed, and that stuff that's collected from the exhaust doesn't get and there's collection places for it. But it's far better. So our opening plan, this is what it's going to look like.
Good plan.
Sorry.
You can
That fast, right?
Yes.
that fast. So this is a photograph of the map that we use on a daily basis when at 2 o'clock every single day we sit down and have a conversation with whoever wants to talk about snow, about where we're going to go. So this is the current map we're looking at, and the red trails are the trails that we will have lit when it comes time to start making snow, which will be Tuesday night.
Yes.
Tuesday, 2 days?
2 days.
So is there a 10-day window where everything looks?
There was a 4-day, which went to 3, which we're holding at 3 right now, but it doesn't look good. But we are going to be in the teens for at least 36 hours. Will it be enough to get something open so we can actually go out there and slide? I don't know. We're going to try like hell. But so the red stuff, I guarantee we will get going, because basically more than half of that terrain is automated. All of what's next is automated. These guns down here are automated. Whistler from F-lift top to F-lift bottom is automated, and half of Wolverine. So we manually need to light the wraparound warpath chute area and other Wolverine. And then we're hoping that with the guns that we put on there and the efficiencies we picked up, that we gained, we'll be able to light the blue also, which will be more than we ever have in the past. And if we can get all of that stuff going and keep it going for 36 hours at low teens, there's a good possibility that next Saturday, let's say, that's my whole rule. I hope, man, it'll be great. So, next. So personnel, we've had our struggles. Right now, we are looking at, we're still having struggles, but we've picked up some really good people this year. Lift operation-wise, we got a gentleman out of the Midwest. His name is Luke Cohen. He comes to us with a lot of knowledge in running lift operations, but not only there, but he's also well acquainted with lift maintenance, so he understands the processes. He is changing things a little bit. He's upping the level of knowledge that his people will have as far as the operations. He does require people to ride lifts. Patrol will ride also and give feedback, but his people will be riding lifts also every single day. So they don't just go out there and push buttons and call somebody when something doesn't work right. Lift maintenance, Joe German left us in spring. He went back to where he came from. Picked up another gentleman by the name of Eric White. He came to us through Montage. Prior to that, he worked for Ski Roundtop, who is one of our sister ski areas for 25 years. He has been here before, he knows the area, and he brings a huge amount to the table as far as lift maintenance is concerned. This summer, when COVID hit, Doppelmayr Ski Company had they were devastated. They lost 70% of their business of all the new installs and things that they had to do, and they really didn't know what they were going to do. So we took advantage of that and called Doppelmayr. We had some of the mechanics come here early on and go over every single one of our lifts and give us a report card on what we needed to do. There were red things that had to be done immediately, green things that had to be done the next maintenance program, and then things that we needed to really pay attention to, because if we didn't, it would become red. And everybody remembers G-lift with its stop, go, stop, go, stop, go. We know why that happened. There's a lot of things that with detaches, they're so intricate, and there's so much more to them than the fixed grips that everybody used to be used to. And yes, they've been around for quite some time, but there's not a lot of knowledge out there. It's right now when these lifts are starting to become colder. Hunter's gone through it, Windham's gone through it, and a lot of other places are going through it. So it's a real eye-opener to actually have the company come in here who manufactures these things, and they tell you, well, you need to do this. Didn't you know that? Well, no one told us. So a lot of the things that we had problems with have been rectified. We spent a ton of money this year. We had people come in from France. We had people come in from, they came from everywhere, and really did a number of work. They didn't just fix the stuff, they taught our guys how to do it. And I'm really proud because these guys absorbed a lot, and they learned a lot, and they got signed off on by some of the best in the business. So we have a really good maintenance crew here that is still evolving and still learning, but they are light years ahead of where they were even just last year. So next time you see them, give them a pat on the back. We have a new snow services manager, Keith Kreischer, who was in charge of the terrain parks, has stepped up. And what we were looking for is somebody who could coordinate what needs to happen after the snow plan. So the snow plan happens every day at 2 o'clock, as I said earlier. And we discuss where snow needs to be, what needs to be groomed, what needs to be, all of the different things. So he will be the guy who will kind of combine everything and talk to the snowmakers where things need to be, but it'll coordinate both of those departments so that they can work together. It also gives us an opportunity to get things done a little bit sooner. So decades ago, we used to start grooming at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Groomers would be sitting over here with their engines running. Patrol would come down from sweep. As soon as the last person came down, out the cats went. They would groom until 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. They're done, they go home. From 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning until opening, those trails sat there. Yes, they were groomed. Yes, they were corduroy. But by the time the public got out there, they were solid ice corduroy. And it was very durable. It lasted a long time, but it wasn't much fun to ski on. I mean, how many people complain about their knees hurting because of the vibration? So we started a program a few years ago where we didn't start grooming until 12 o'clock at night. And we wouldn't stop grooming until we were open. And it was black, blue, green. The black trails got groomed first, blue next, green last. So that the product that was left behind was far better than what we had previously been leaving behind. And it was as fresh as it could be. So the public would get out there on snow that a snowcat had come off of within the last hour. But we've all experienced, mostly on the east side, we've got trails that have, Wanderer that has mounds as big as this lodge, and they don't get to it until they're done with this side of the mountain. They start pushing stuff out. They're not off that trail until 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. In the past, was it okay? No, not really, but we could live. Now, we can't afford to have terrain that we just spent a huge amount of money and time on putting snow on it to have it closed because we're still pushing it out. So with this new plan, we're going to start doing the pushing of trails that need to get pushed at 4 in the afternoon. They won't get finished until the next morning, of course, because it will get pushed out. Then the final groom will be done right before we open, so that we will have as much terrain as we possibly can have when we open on that given day. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. It's going to be more expensive. It's going to take more time. It's going to take more people. It's going to take more toll on the machines. I imagine if this continues, we're going to end up with another machine in years to come to help us out, because the 5 machines we have aren't going to be able to cut it. But right now is what we got. Snowmaking crews are still going to be a 24-hour operation. It'll be from 6 to 6, morning and evening. We do have a new supervisor that has been here for a few years on our day crew, Ryan Boyd. Jeez, must have been well. Ryan Boyd, you recognize him when you see him. Carson White is still the nighttime supervisor. And the rest of the crews, we have quite a few newer, younger people who have come on board. They are inexperienced, but very willing to learn. And anybody on patrol that wants to learn how to start up a gun or shut off a gun, we will teach you.
We just have to call on our phone now, though, right? We just ask them to turn it on.
Yeah, you do that. No, you can actually just go like this and do it. Honestly.
Somebody have a question?
No, he was just saying we were going
Oh.
Next, please. So,
Can you say live on
no, I think Rod's still here.
Who?
Rod. Rod Mikulski's in the corner.
Is he?
Yeah.
So, I mean, Ron was way ahead of his time with that mask. I mean, geez, who would have
No, that
thought?
upper right picture is bad. 3 of those people are dead.
He just
That's what he said.
Oh.
Do you have a hearing aid on?
You do, but you have your mask on.
So Ron Baker, I mean, you know, everybody has their stories, everybody has their memories, and you're all thinking of them right now, I guarantee it, because how can you not? It's, this mountain will not be the same. That's all I can say. So in honor of that, we've taken B-Lift and we've renamed it to the Baker Double. It is on the map. It's the first one on the list, Baker Double, since there is no A-Lift, and we hope he's proud, because it's...
You know how much he was a stickler for the proper phonetic alphabet, so this obviously would make him very unhappy. But, no. All kidding aside, Jesus Christ. It's Bravo!
So, in honor of him, and that's an ending on that. Any questions?
In lieu of, sorry, I can't. The lines are going to be longer, right? And slower. And patrol's going to be less.
Well, they won't necessarily be slower, because the lifts will still be moving at the same rate of speed. The lines will not necessarily be longer, because we will be dealing with pretty much half the normal capacity what we would normally have here.
What is that?
They're going to be spaced out.
What was the number per day that you were walking?
3,500. So we're aiming at 3,000, but we kind of have a 500 number in there as a safety. We are allowed to go to 50% of our maximum capacity.
The snow is good.
Yes. That's the thing. It's going to be, the outside is our responsibility. You know, the lift attendants are going to have a hard time. Maggie will explain the new layout for patrol, because things are going to change. Everyone's going to be outside. That'll be it. We're an outside group. You know, we need all come prepared, me included, to be outside. That's where we are. And the snowmakers will be outside. Everybody will be outside. People who are inside are going to have a whole new thing on their hands. You know, it's going to be tough. And we don't want anything that we are doing outside to influence the decision makers in this country to shut us down. We don't want it to be the problem. We're not going to. So we need to make sure that we have people spread out, employee-wise and guest-wise.
So what I was going with that, just trying to anticipate possibly different. With nights shut down, can we hang on to our snowmobile?
Snowmobiles will not operate on the road.
What do you mean hanging on to the snow? What do you mean?
It's just, we'll lose our snowmobile.
What?
Not lose the snowmobile.
Well, we're not losing our snowmobile. No. We will still.
It's still here.
Yeah. We have two.
That's an emergency operation.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. And for emergencies only. Everyone will be cutting down on the amount of time it's not being used during the day. So, but yeah, no, but they're not disappearing. Both of our snowmobiles will still be in full operation. Did I? Anything else? Questions from the
Gallery.
No, everybody's happy.
Don't wait.
John Valenti is happy.
Wake up.
Mr. McKeever is happy.
You know, I think I will say this, I think we're going to see...
Step up in front of the camera, please. I'd like to
Multiple
see.
traffic. I think we're going to see more people snowshoeing, the peak-to-peak stuff. And I think we all need to be ready to be able to handle those situations.
I think you're absolutely right. So I'm joining the uphill crowd.
Yeah.
I'm one of the new guys.
I think we should all...
I started looking for my gear back in September, because I'm one of those people that has to read everything and go through it. And I got a phone call from my son in Lake Tahoe who said, buy your stuff because it's selling out. His people out there they were already out of stuff. So I decided what I wanted to get, and I'm really glad I did because I bought the last pair of Atomic Hawks 130 boots that Atomic had at the beginning of October. Everything is sold out. And anybody which means just like the bicycle world and the RV world and the boat world, people are buying everything they possibly can to be outside. And it means exactly what you said. It's going to be really busy.
If you are under 5'5", we do have some of Ron Baker's equipment, but it's very limited in size. So, Rob, you could probably strap two of them together if you wanted to. But
and Ted, you made a good thing. I think we might see increase of RVs coming around and parking in the parking lot.
We did this summer.
are we allowing them to? Is that?
I would imagine that they will end up having to be in North Lot. We do not have electric over there, but that's totally them.
What's going on with the adventure park this year?
So, no night skiing, right?
We're doing Metro
We're still doing nights.
Like tubing.
Yes.
It's on the list.
Everyone will have to do one. I'm just going to get to it in there, but everybody will do one night. All volunteers. I know I'm talking to a mixed crowd here.
I know I made a mistake, okay?
All volunteers will do one night at the tubing park.
And the overnight will be available any night at all. This is right across the street.
There will be two people down there. No one will be down there alone. There will be two people. One is so that no one should ever be a rescuer alone. So we will operate from just before Christmas week to President's Week.
We may open a little early if we can, just to give people something to do. We bought 2 new kids' snowmobiles, so we'll have more of those for people to use.
How about adult snowmobiles?
We bought 2 larger ones that we just sold because they sat there doing nothing. Then one of them got wrecked because we're not quite sure how that happened.
Yeah, probably. Snowmobile, right?
And the rules in that lodge are going to be the same as this lodge, or is that food going to be open?
Well, there's no parties, so the downstairs will only be used for employees. I mean, that's the other issue which Chip was talking about with the CLC and other places. The employee areas are going to be limited, and the thing with tubing is it's another one of those employee-dependent things. In order to run that on a daily basis, you need minimum 18 people. But they need a place to be able to get in out of the weather, and the wind howls across that flat. So we can't just, build a lean-to and something, So we're going to take the downstairs and separate everything. There's going to be 3 different spaces that they'll be assigned to. So when they take their break, they go to that spot. They're all young too, so it's like herding cats.
If you haven't been down there in the last year or so, Susan, our tubing park manager, revamped our first aid station down there. So it's really nice. It's not just the little tiny broom closet that was prior to that. It's actually, I believe, the old zip line room. So with the door to the outside, so they can come right.
Oh, it's from that ramp down.
Yep. So she's done a really nice job of making sure that we have the proper facility to treat people down there, and our equipment down there will mimic a smaller version of what's downstairs. So, if you're there for the night, it's not going to be like you're.
And if you have to transport anybody, just call the ambulance right to that spot.
And it's nice because it can pull right back there. There's no one parked there, but.
Maybe cross-country skiing on the golf course?
There will be cross-country skiing down there if we have natural snow. Doesn't happen too often.
Does in March.
Well, we've already had 10 inches
Yeah.
here. I mean, anybody, how you guys have been around. So. But it's been just like last year. The snow and rain.
Strange Halloween.
Yeah.
Were we able to get any international students?
Yes. So normally we would have almost 50. This year we were first told no, nothing. And now we're getting 10.
Very generous.
Yeah.
They're all
Which we'll take as many as we possibly can.
They're all repeats.
Yeah.
So people have been.
all trained already, so that's good. We need them. We're, that's our biggest issue right now, is having enough employees to be able to do what we need to do. All aware.
Any questions? So we'll take a couple of just 5-minute break, and then I'll roll into what we're doing for COVID specifically for patrol, and then Johan will touch.
There's from Maggie's. Yeah.
Johan will touch on updates to OEC 6 and CPR. So I'm just going to touch on some things specifically for patrol-wise as far as COVID goes. I'm talking to a mixed room here of some volunteers, some paid staff, so some of this might apply to you, it might not apply to you. So for Chip talked about earlier, red days, green days. So on red days, we will be limiting the amount of patrollers, volunteer patrollers, to 18 patrollers, 10 safeties. There'll be no cap on the students, but those are specifically on the red days pertaining to volunteers. So they will be required to sign up in advance. Johan has revamped his sign-up process electronically, so that will go out to it has gone out to everyone. Some people have signed up. Some of the feedback is some people haven't seen it, so we will be resending it out to everybody. So we're asking if you're volunteering on if you would like to volunteer on a red day, you sign up 48 hours in advance. On a green day, 24 hours in advance. Green days will, mostly during the week. I know a lot of the volunteers in this room come during the week, so you can volunteer the night before or as far in advance as you can. Sharon, I know you're usually good with your schedule because you have it, but not everybody's schedule dictates that far in advance to be able to commit all their days signed up right away. So we really need to make sure that we know who's here. It can plan training. It helps plan training. It helps us to plan our staffing. So on red days, with the limit of 18 patrollers, 10 safeties, we will be spread out differently throughout the mountain. On the holidays for the paid staff as well, this will be something that we participate into, spreading out during busy times. On those red days when it's busy, we'll be staffing, obviously, the Summit East, Summit West, along with the Wheelhouse, 302, and the base area. So on a red day, we'll have 18 patrollers, but not all 18 patrollers will be in one location at that time. If you're assigned to the base area, you and one other person are the team assigned to the base area. You'll be rotating through helping with lift lines. If there's an incident at the tubing park, you and the other person will respond to the tubing park. Upon request, you will be asked to help in first aid, but only upon request in first aid you'll be asked to help. So we're really going to be focusing on making sure that we have enough patrollers because the safety of the mountain is important, but we just need to spread them out and make sure that everybody is being safe and we are able to patrol the mountain. So if you're here in the base area, like Ted said before, the lift lines are going to be something completely different than we've seen before. So it's up to us to help out the best that we can and make sure that we are a set of hands down here to help with whatever we need, patrol-wise or mountain-wise. Like I said before, volunteers will be doing one night of tubing down at the tubing park with another person, so that's available to sign up on Johan's list as well. If you've already signed up for nights and want to, with the anticipation of skiing nights, then if you would like to re-sign up for your night, you can't unsign up for it, just send...
Yes, you can.
Oh, Johan,
You can.
okay, so we changed from yesterday. Yep. You can unsign up on the program and pick another night. So this is all a work in progress, and like they've explained, everything's changing day by day. Things change overnight. So the best that I can ask is that everybody work with us and really help out as much as possible. There's going to be times where things are going to change, where plans go awry, and we have to adapt. And obviously, as patrollers, that's something that we should be able to do, is adapt. That's what we need to be able to do. So. some weekends might be one thing, some weekend might be the other, depending upon races, events, depending upon what we're doing. So we're looking at probably seeing more increased traffic during the week as opposed to the, ski traffic. Those Tuesday, Wednesdays aren't going to be the 50 people that are bopping around, the same 50 people that are bopping around the mountain every Tuesday. So we just need to make sure that we're out there the best that we possibly can be. The summit, while you're in the summit, will be limited. There will never be more than 8 people in the summit at a time. While you're in the summit, unless you're eating or drinking, you will be wearing a mask while in the summit. Our health and safety is important to everyone, and we just need to make sure that we are able to get open and stay open, and that we're not the reason why we don't stay open. Cleaning up in the summit will take place daily as we leave for the day. The whole place will be wiped down, so the fresh crew in the morning, whether it's the same people or different people, will come into a clean, sterilized summit. Yes?
There aren't going to be any snowmakers in the summit anymore?
That's the plan. So, I don't know, people at home, the question was the snowmakers in the summit, they will not be in there. Between dispatches, if you're the assigned dispatcher, once your dispatch time is over, it will be on you to clean and wipe down the phone, the keyboard, the mouse, the space that you sat in as the dispatcher, so that the next person coming into the dispatch room can have a clean, sterile environment, because if they're answering phones, they can take their mask off and the radio and be able to communicate that way. The dispatch room will look very different. There will be no more than 3 people. 3 is pushing it in the dispatch room, to be honest. It will be the dispatch room, one other person, if need be a third person, but that's really pushing it. There will be no unauthorized personnel, no family, no friends in the summit. We need to make sure that we are controlling the amount of people that come in and out of there. Going along with that, the locker room will be closed to friends and family this year, along with being able to boot. We are being permitted to boot up in the lodge. Unlike other people, other employees, our guests, as patrollers, it's important that we are able to have dry boots and they dry overnight. So we are being permitted to boot up in the locker room. So if we would like to continue to be able to do that, we need to make sure that we respect the policy of a patrol employee only in the locker room. Patrollers should come dressed, ready to go, come in, put our boots on, get our skis, and go out the door. On the weekends, we'll be running our OC class in there, so the locker room will be closed to everyone, patrollers included, from the time the class starts to the time the class ends. We're still very committed to making sure that our students and our candidates get the proper education that they need and deserve. So in order to make that happen, we all need to be respectful for the fact that that's the area where they will be learning. And in order to make that happen, we can't have any traffic in and out of there to control the number of people in that room. Obviously, if things change, we'll go from there. But we just make sure we all need to respect that and make it healthy, safe. We will be cleaning that at the end of the day. The locker room, the radios, everything will be wiped down as we leave, so that coming in the next morning, everybody will have a clean, safe environment to come into. So it's on all of us to make sure that we participate in that, and it will be assigned to someone if need be. But as long as you make sure that you wipe your radio down as you put it back in, and it'll be up to me to make sure that all the other surfaces are sanitized. The first aid room will look very different than it's looked in the past. We've installed new curtains down there so that there's the 6 beds. Each bed has a curtain and is curtained off and is its own place in there, so that the patient and the responder can be in there within the curtains, and no other people will be in there unless multiple. There's multiple entries and we need to have multiple people. There will be the only people that will be in there with injured patients, or if we have a child that's injured, a parent will be in there. Other than that, there will be no other personnel with the injured patient, except for if it's a child. Obviously, case by, if there's a severe trauma and we need to have someone's family in there as well, we'll go from there. The doors will be locked at all times from the outside. We'll have video doorbells. You'll ring the video door, or we won't have to, but anybody walking up to the door will ring the video doorbell. We'll say, it will chime on the iPad, how may we help you? Oh, I hurt my wrist, I hurt my shoulder, something like that. We will let them in and go from there. If they need an ice pack or a Band-Aid or something small, it will be brought out to them. We're ramping up the ice packs, Band-Aids at the guest services and mountain host stations so that we're not seeing that traffic, as well as the first aid kits for employees throughout the resort, so we're not seeing that as well. There will be waiting areas, the old doctor's office hallway, and our normal waiting area will be still the same, it will just be much less. And if it gets to a point where the capacity of that room is getting too full, we might ask people to wait outside or, come back. And if it's not a serious injury, to come back. So it's going to look very different down there. We'll have extra sled packs. Normally we keep 2-pack sled packs. We'll be adding 2 more to have 4 extra sled packs so that things can go back out the door, because all packs and sleds will have to be sterilized after coming in on the equipment. So if you're the 2 people in the base area, you might be called down to help sterilize that equipment. We bring the sled in, you'll come around, go down the stairs, and somebody will meet you to open the door to let you in. We have a nice new sled ramp and the stairs going in, so we won't have to slide down the embankment or, it was a little bit of a tricky situation to get down that hill there. You'll come in, there'll be one-way traffic in from the hallway and exit back out the stairs on the side. Capital Region Orthopedics will still operate their clinic on weekends and holidays there, so they'll have their own safety procedures that they will be following as well. So once our patients in our first aid room are turned over to Capital Region Orthopedics, they will exit through that office and they won't be coming back through. They will still continue to see follow-up patients there, and those patients will have to make an appointment between a certain time, and they will be entering through the hallway. They will never be coming into first aid. It's imperative that we make sure we communicate to anyone around that first aid is for authorized personnel only. There's no hanging out in there. There's no wandering through there. It's not a hallway. So I know in the past, people have tended to gather in there, and that won't be permitted. Yes, go.
From yesterday, there was a question: how does the patroller take in the patient down after they drop off the sled?
Right. So the patroller will hand the sled in through the door. They'll go around down the new stairs, and they might just have to wait a minute for somebody to come and open the back red bay doors, or you come around and ring the bell, and somebody else with the iPad will let you in. But first and foremost, it's the priority to get the patient into the bed, and then the patroller will. There might be times where there might be enough people in there, and we need somebody back out on the hill, where we will say, hey, can you take this sled back up and head back up top and do your patroller comments and your finish. They'll take care of your report in there if we have the appropriate staff.
As part of our procedure for prevention, are we going to be asking each patient a COVID questionnaire and temperature checking?
We won't be taking temperatures, but part of our assessment will be the COVID questions, so that out on the hill, if anybody answers yes to those questions, we need to be able to communicate that down to first aid so that they can have the necessary PPE. We will be wearing, as patrollers, while you're out patrolling, riding the lift in the summit, everybody will be wearing a triple layer mask like you have on today. When you're treating patients on hill and first aid, you will be wearing an N95 mask that we have provided. We are doing our best to get the N95s that we can get, obviously in short supply, but we are able to get N95s through our supplier, but we still need to be cautious. It's always, if you have your N95, you can put your triple layer on top of it just for the extra protection as well. Those will be provided to every patroller every shift, along with a surgical mask in case your patient doesn't have a mask or is unable to reach their mask. So every day you will get 2 N95s, and one mask, and if we need to up that, we will do that as well.
So we'll actually have to wear a mask when we're skiing?
No, you don't have to wear it while you're skiing. Skiing and riding, socially distanced 6 feet apart, or eating and drinking is the only time you don't have to wear the N90 or the triple layer. The bandanas and the pull-up balaclavas, those do not count. So it will be a triple layer mask. So, if you have that mask and you want to put your bandana over it or your face covering over it because you're cold, a lot of us wear that anyway. So
that's acceptable if you just put like the thin layer neck gaiter over a mask like this here.
yeah.
Okay.
So as long as you have this, the gaiter won't count as the mask, but if you have your mask on like that and you pull your gaiter up over it, yes. Yes, Melvin?
What about patients wearing masks? So I was thinking if we wanted to get the most oxygen to them, having them wear masks might help.
So depending upon the injury, if we have the N95 on and an extra, if that's the case, Robin's question was, what if treating our patients getting the oxygen they need? If your patient can't tolerate a mask or the injury they have doesn't allow a mask, you definitely have to have your N95 and put an extra layer over it to protect ourselves, because that might be a case where we have a patient that can't tolerate a mask or needs oxygen. So we need to make sure that we protect ourselves. Yesterday we talked about we should just assume that everybody is a positive patient, and we just need to make sure that we are protecting ourselves. Yes?
Would you, Dr.
Mike Gott
yesterday made a really good point. Would you bring that
Sure.
up?
Yesterday, Dr. Mike Gott talked about how in his office, when they started, everybody was wearing, everybody that came in had a surgical mask, and everyone in their facility was wearing N95s and an extra mask on it as well. And no one in their practice, patient or employee, contracted COVID. With patients wearing their triple layer protection, and then the doctors, nurses, and the staff wearing N95s and surgical masks. As they got further into the summer, as things came down a little bit, they were not required to wear N95s at all times. They had the surgical mask or the triple layer mask. Patient wore that, and the staff wore that. And with that, no one, again, in their facility contracted COVID. So as long as everybody on both ends are wearing something on their face and practicing social distance, they had not seen any cases, and they treat hundreds of people a day. So, we need to stress the importance of making sure that we have a mask, they have a mask, but we will see those times where they might not be able to because of their injuries, and we need to make sure that we protect ourselves. In the event that someone has an injury and does answer yes to those questions, we do have the proper PPE downstairs to treat an injured potential COVID patient. Tom, you had a question?
So to answer your question, the patients we're seeing with any kind of respiratory issues, we're using a non-rebreather. We stick the mask on our face, the surgical mask over, and just that alone helps because it pulls the mask off their face. But then you're set up if you need oxygen or depth or whatever, you see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So that non-rebreather is something we're seeing on the street. We're ripping the bag off. We're not using just to give them just a little, because you watch patients like suck in, that's just something.
So Tom, you guys are just using a regular oxygen mask?
Non-rebreather, surgical mask over it.
You're taking the non-rebreather off?
Well, we have the option at that point in time, if they need oxygen, we just hook it up, or if they need a depth treatment, we hook it up. But either way, even if they don't, the non-rebreather gives them just enough space, and we are finding relief, and we're seeing evidence in the oxygen saturation makes a difference.
That's good to know. Things like that are going to come up. We're going to find things that work that other people are doing, that a lot of us here have some other job where best practices are coming up. So that needs to be brought to us, and we'll discuss it, and if it's something that we need to implement, it will. The N95s and the triple layer face coverings comes directly from NSP and NSAA, so we will continue to follow their guidelines and their guidance in this matter, and if they change things, we will change things. and that's really, we are going by their standard and the industry standard as well. But if we have something like that for unique situations are going to occur, and we just need to make sure that we're protecting ourselves and protecting our patients as well. I think that is all that I have. We covered a lot of the HR stuff. Does anybody have any other questions? Anything that I missed? Anything that we want to add for first aid? I think we covered all of that. Like I said, it's going to be a unique experience. Things are going to be changing, and it's really up to us to make sure that we are as safe as possible, but we still have to treat injured patients. So we will adapt. We will do the best that we can and make sure that we will stay safe in all aspects that we need to. Good? Everyone happy at home?
Everybody's happy? Break, 5 minutes?
Yeah, we'll take a 5-minute break, and Johan will roll into the updates from OEC 6, and then we'll have some lunch, and we'll do a quick little look back.
All right. Robert, are you done?
Soon.
All right, so we have a couple of updates. It's going to be quick and sweet. Updates for the OEC. I'm sorry?
We're done. It was quick and sweet.
Still here. Updates for the OEC 6. This is the new cycle, right? OEC 6. Patient assessment on, there's a few things that we already know that they list as new in the new OEC book that says that we should know all the places where we take pulses. Where are all those places?
Carotid, brachial, femoral, pedal, and which one am I missing? Oh, distal.
Well,
Dorsal.
Dorsal, yeah. So we already know those, but for some reason they listed that as new information. Also with the O2, oxygen, if they need oxygen on the hill, and you look at them and they are breathing 200 times a minute, we're going to need to place them on oxygen, preferably BVM. If they are breathing once every 2 days, we need to put oxygen on. If we miss that, we are not good clinicians, and we should probably, like Ron Baker would say, work in the parking lot.
So there's 6 breaths a minute.
Go ahead.
If there's like 6 breaths a minute, that's okay.
That's okay. That's perfectly wonderful. No? So if we have missed that important part of determining if the patient needs oxygen on the hill, we should go home. Anyhow, so place oxygen. Don't worry about the pulse oximetry. That is a new update. Titrating after 94% and all that stuff. Give them oxygen on the hill via non-rebreather, like we always do. Take them down to the first aid room, and we will reassess the patient down there with appropriate O2 pulse oximetry. All right? And if it's the new rule now, if it's lower than 94%, we will titrate oxygen until we reach 94%. And this is in the case if they are not in any way a risk of carbon monoxide poisoning. Because what happens then? Tom Borman, what happens if they are possibly carbon monoxide poisoning?
Carbon monoxide confuses the pulse oximetry, it imitates the hemoglobin, and therefore we cannot rely upon it.
We cannot reliably measure the oxygenation of the blood, right? So, hopefully that won't happen here, but just something to think about. So 94% is the cutoff. Anything above that, we don't really need to put oxygen on the patient. Anything lower than that in the first aid room, we will apply titrate so it will get up to 94%.
Quick question?
Yes,
so
sir.
we can use pulse oximetry on the hill?
No.
Okay.
You won't have to monitor.
Don't do, but I mean, again, pulse oximetry is what? You put a little thing on fingers. What happens to when fingers get cold? How about the circulation of blood in the finger?
Right.
It's going to give you a false negative, okay, or positive, or whatever, you know. Yes, Tom?
Well, as you taught me in the past, capnography is the superior.
Yeah, well, that's for other people's. Yeah. So there is something that for higher trained, like paramedics, we use a different style of measuring. But for us, right. So for us, pulse oximetry is the key. We can put that little thing on where there's room temperature hands or fingers, so we can measure the 94. Okay. Auto injectors, the same thing. We have changed to RICE's acronym. All right, remember the old style, RICE, ice compression, elevated splint. The new stuff is we removed a letter, and it's now RISE, RICE, and it stands for rest, ice, splint, and elevate. So it makes it easier for us. Bleeding control. There's a couple of, it's packing wounds. That was a big no-no up till now. We would not pack a wound if there's a wound somewhere. When will we need to pack a wound? Anybody? You cannot put a tourniquet. You cannot control the bleeding with a direct pressure or a tourniquet. So you will pack the wound with sterile gauze or whatever you have available. All right, stop bleeding. Let's see.
So are they mentioning like quick clots or anything like that?
Now, there's no really. It's per agency. It's per region and per agency if we can use quick clot or not. We still have it available here.
Yeah, we do have a quick clot.
We can use it here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, because my other market can't use it.
Yeah, well, use it here. If you really need to, trust me. It's again, we are clinicians. We are highly trained clinicians. We should be able to think outside the box and do what we need to do to save the patient. If we do good clinical decisions, people will hopefully live. All right? We're not all set in stone. A lot of these things are recommendations. So quick clot, absolutely. If you need quick clot, please bring it back and just stop that bleeding. All right? For trauma patients, and we actually talked about that last year. There was anything now we used to be ABCs, airway, breathing, circulation. Nowadays we start with circulation. If we have a paper cut here, that is not infringing upon our hemodynamically stable patient, right? If it's pooling of blood around the patient as we find them, with a femoral cut or some serious arterial bleed, we need to take care of that first. Are we all agree that? So that's the new thing, right? Pooling of blood. We need pooling of blood. Clean that up, fix that, stop that, and then we can go into ABCs. Let's see here. Posterior SC dislocation. Well, we used to, and I think of Ron Baker when I say this because he was a big fan of clavicular sternal joint posterior dislocations. What is this, you ask? It's when you have a dislocation between your clavicle and your manubrium part of your sternum, which is going behind the sternum. What is behind the sternum? A lot of stuff that we need to function properly. Especially up here, it's the big vessels, aorta, it's the subclavian arteries coming out of the heart. So it's a lot of stuff going on. So the idea in the past was we need to reduce that to not interfere with this. Nowadays, that is out of the protocol. We do no longer focus on reducing that dislocation. All right? Because it wasn't proof. There was nobody who said, yeah, that works every time. Now, Ron Baker told me that he's done 2 successful, where you lay the patient down, push on the shoulder, and it pops back in place. We should transport that patient immediately immediately where doctors and their proper equipment, and that's a hospital, preferably a level 1 trauma center. Okay, quickly. That's what we should be focused.
This is a real life-threatening injury.
Yeah, this is a
This
true.
is nothing to be like, we've had 2 of them here.
Yeah.
And the problem with what he's saying is trying to reset that. If we reset that and it doesn't hold and it goes back in, that we're off to the races.
So we don't spend time on it. We should treat this with either jet fuel via a helicopter preferably, or with diesel, go into the hospital where they can properly monitor this. All right? So that's out of the protocol. Let's see here. Traction? Yes?
Can we still try figure eights for?
No, we're getting there. So traction splinting is just a mentioning in the new OEC about new products coming out. We'll still use whatever we have here, whatever Buzzy and Maggie decides to run as for us for first aid. And yeah, what?
Not me, yeah.
Oh yeah, whatever.
You're okay.
Whatever management decides to have for us as tools as traction splinting will do. We don't know about the manual spine stabilization. We don't do any spine board unless they either have a deficit in their limbs somehow. I can't feel my arms. I have pain right here, and you palpate that, and that is an issue. They say, ow, ow, ow. Then we stabilize them. Just because they fell and they have a headache, they do not need a backboard. Why is that? Well, because it's proven, right? We do more damage. We don't do it well. We do more damage to patients. Try to strap them down on the board. We take way too much time. Backboarding is a long process, as we know. It needs a lot of people and takes a fair amount of time. So we don't do it anymore. I'm going to show you an awesome, cool new device here. Magic.
However, though, if you think you have a patient that is an obese patient, a very large patient that you think we're going to have a problem getting from the sled to the gurney, then by all means, if you're calling for help to move this patient anyway, have somebody bring it back to her. Just put the backboard in the sled. You don't have to strap it to the backboard, but put the backboard in the sled, put them on top of it. So when they do get that to the first aid, we can.
It's again a transportation device. Right. It makes things easier to transport. Again, it's uncomfortable. It doesn't do what it's supposed to do because we are not straight. Our spinal column is not straight. So, all right.
If that's the case and we're going to put them on a backboard, do we strap them kind of from the waist down so that they're stable on the backboard? Or?
Yes, clinically.
But just not like waist up. Just
well, like say you have somebody who's really, really heavy, and these guys, we're going to have a hard time getting this person out of the sled.
Right.
You could just put a backboard in the sled. Okay. You don't have to strap them to that. Okay. I mean, we have 3 straps that's going across their bodies that's going to hold them in the sled.
True.
And we're not immobilizing them on the backboard. We're going to use it
as a lifting aid.
Right. So maybe downstairs, when we get into first aid, we may take a couple of cravats and just throw a couple of cravats on that and say, okay, and help lift out.
All right.
It's pretty much what we used last year. There was nothing changed when we changed. The whole process of backboarding has been changed for years. So it's all right. No log roll when it comes to this is weird because that's the new OEC. The changes is they recommend no log rolls for pelvic fractures, which we already knew from. We don't log roll people with pelvic fractures. Right. So they now specifically mention that it's like, try not to do it. And we have always, why would we log roll somebody? So we're trying to work underneath the patient, get stuff under, and we will do the strapping like we did with the sheets and try to make a girdle, like to hold stabilize the pelvic. All right. This device that I'm going to show you has that built in, but give me a couple of minutes.
Johan, can I? Johan?
Yes?
We will be looking into getting pelvic, I know that you've been looking into getting pelvic pelvic splints and stabilizers.
Oh, nice.
So that they won't be in the trauma bag, but they will be in a separate bag at each summit, so that if somebody needs that pelvic binder and the stabilization, that it will be available.
We have two sizes of the sand, like the sand splint, sand mix and pelvic, so we put those in.
Well, there we go. Go get new tools and make things better.
And we'll do
We'll do an in-service on it.
yeah, we'll do a training on that as well, but just so everyone knows that is an option.
Figure eights are out for our training purposes. Again, the figure eights are, in my opinion, they can work on people with clavicle fractures. Some of them. What? Yeah. We have 8 people here that have had fractures of the clavicle, which is, as we all know, very common. For some patients, that works. If we do figure eight, doesn't mean because it's out of the OSC that we cannot utilize that technique. No, it does not, because we are awesome clinicians and we will do what's the best for the patient. If we don't create an injury on the patient, we can do the figure eight. We might try it in the first aid room. We might do it properly and say, does that feel better? No, it doesn't feel better at all. You know what we can do with that figure eight? We can take it off. All right? We'll try it. Because I put on a great many figure eights, and that actually gives the patient some relief.
They work well on mid-shift.
Yeah. And it's kind of it keeps them back a little. So that's it. It's just not part of our training in the OSC. The new SALT triage, it seems to change this a lot throughout the years. I think the new emphasis is that sorting, assessment, and then we treat the patient. So the first thing is, of course, the top one. I don't know if you can see it up there. So if they can walk, what do we do? There's 20 people there. There's laying, and there's a guy walking. Go over there in the corner. If they're laying on the ground and they can only weigh, well, then we're going to assess them the second, right? And if they can't do anything, we should probably pay attention to that person first. Life-saving intervention, which means, again, we see controlled major hemorrhaging. That's our first go, right? And then we have all the open airway, chest decompressions, which is interesting that they mention this. NSP does not recommend that OEC technicians do chest decompression. Okay? Which means we don't stick big needles into chest. Paramedics are trained to do this, but maybe soon we will have NSP allow people to stick big needles.
I'm good. Thank you. I'm all right.
It's very cool. It's very cool. I've done it many times.
No, thank you.
It's very cool.
No, I'm good.
Yeah, baby. All right. Auto-injector antidotes. Well, which means what? What are the auto-injectors that we carry, that we have out there for people to continue to live?
Epi.
Epi? Narcan? What?
People that have to give themselves their own glaucoma shots.
Sure. There's many things out there, but for us, it's mostly like Narcan is probably not going to be the biggest problem here, but it's out there. But you know, anybody can get have an anaphylactic reaction. They might have their own epi. We might have to help out on the first aid room to give them a little dose of that in the first aid room. And we have the epi injectors, correct? We all know how to operate them. Very good. If they are not breathing after we've done that first major survey, they are considered dead. Make sure that they are not breathing. It's very embarrassing if you have to take a black sticker off the patient and say, oops. So make sure that once you put that black tag on, that they are dead. All right? Why is that? Because we step over them, take a sticker on or whatever tag, because we need to take care of other people that are having a bigger chest. So, next step, if they are breathing, yes, obeys command and makes purpose of movement. Hey, can you wiggle your fingers for me? Yes, I can. Okay, has peripheral pulses? Hey, there's great pulses in the radials. Yeah, perfect. Not in respiratory distress. and major hemorrhage is controlled. Again, if we haven't controlled that by then, we should go in the parking lot. All right? If yes, minor injuries only, we can have delayed. If it's no, if it's yes, minimal. Now, if there's any of those or no, and likely to survive given current resources, if I decide as a great, magical, super patroller clinician that this patient, there is nothing I can do for this patient in his condition or her condition, that he will, in any way, she will continue to live, I will then put a gray tag. I don't even know if we have gray tags, but that's expectant to die, because we have no resources at this point to really make this person to live. All right? And if this yes, we're going to treat them immediately. All right? It's a new thing. It's probably going to change in the next couple of years, and somebody will come up with a different little funny-looking thing where how we treat these patients. All right? We do have a, let's see here, the new stroke protocol. It's not really new. It's called Fast ED. Remember, it's easy to remember. Fast ED means like go fast to the emergency department, because that's where people work, usually, that can handle these things better than we can. Okay? The stroke patients. So fast facial droop, arm weakness, speech, time, when did it happen, what's going on, how long have they been in this condition? That's important for the people at the emergency department to know so they can appropriately treat the patient. All right? The new one is eye deviation, as in E, the E and ED. If they look at it, if they're just staring one way or another way, and you're right in front of them and they don't follow, that's another indication that they might suffer from some kind of a cerebrovascular incident. Yes, Thomas?
So there's an app called Joint Triage.
Yes.
If anybody's interested, and you don't have to apply, but if you download it, it gives you the Fast ED assessment.
Right.
So you can talk to your patient and then relay it to Johan in the first aid room or whatever. You don't have to sign up for anything. You can make your way through it, and if anyone's interested.
You can just Google Fast ED and you come up with all these apps. So yeah, sure, it's a great idea. So that's just a new, somebody came up with a new little Fast ED. And the D is denial, neglect. It's like not 100% sure, but it's like if you touch their right side and they can't feel it, and they're neglected to feel it. And of course, a lot of people are in denial. They can have something called a TIA, which is transient ischemic accident, which is where you have a stroke that the stroke symptoms goes away. What does that mean? Well, people are usually very happy after that goes away. It goes, oh, it was terrible. I couldn't feel my leg and my arm, and it went away. Thank goodness. What should that person be doing?
Buying a lottery ticket.
Immediately. That's it. What?
Buying a lottery ticket.
Yeah. They should go to the hospital and talk to somebody about that incident, because that was their warning sign. All right, any other questions on that update? That's about it. All right, let me go and show you this new toy. This is it. This is our new backboard. How is this possible? How can this be? What is this magic you talk about? This is a backboard? So this is called a vacuum mattress. So this is our vacuum mattress, right? Very soft, lightweight. Oh, who wants to? Robin, do you want to do it? Okay, great. So this is very soft, flexible. It rolls up easily. Oh, who's fighting it off? You want to do it?
No.
Yes or no?
No.
Okay, Robin.
Yes.
So here is the. So here's the vacuum mattress. Okay, how can this possibly be original? I'm going to prove it to you. It's magical. All right? We lay this out. We transfer the patient onto this as we will do with the backboard. We might have to log roll the patient.
You said log roll.
This patient does not have any hip fractures.
Are you sure?
We are possible. We are great clinicians, and we have decided that this patient has none. We can also use blankets, push them under the patient.
So when and why would we use this?
When will? Okay. So anyhow, so if I decide that this patient has what we talked about before, some kind of numbness of their, hands, legs, or they have palpate the spinal column and they say ooh and ow and ouch, we can utilize this. We don't have any on the hill yet, but this is just to show, and it's part of the OEC 6 to show these new products. All right? So this is what is a positive, some sort of a spinal injury, which we have verified. Okay? We can also use this tool for pelvic fractures. Right? We do not log roll unless we really have to. Okay, that's what the book says. So
We recommend the fireman slip.
yes, absolutely. We can do all the lifting techniques that we have learned, right? We can lift them all in one unit and put them on, like we do with the backboard. Right? But this is easy because we can kind of move, especially out there out in the snow. We might be able to get this underneath the patient, like a whole blanket or something like that. Robin, hop on here.
Things I've noticed using them, they slide really well down the hill. So.
Well, it's also goes back. So does backwards. Head over here, Cece's head, right there. Right, you put her head like that. Perfect.
I need that part.
And we're going to have somebody.
Just hop on.
You can't log roll anymore, so you gotta tell me go.
Now, if you have a tall person.
This is going to be a problem.
We're not going to fit that.
The what?
If you have a tall person, we're not going to fit
Do we care about these things? We don't care about these things, right? Do we care about these things?
No.
No. They just happens to be attached to the patient. We care
Tommy.
about everything from here to here. So even, there was a question yesterday, what about
He needs
Kevin
one of
Kraft?
the stabilization.
Well, his legs might be sticking out to here, okay? It's okay. This is what we're trying to protect. Spinal column. No one has a longer spinal column than this. That I know. Okay? Anyhow, so here we are. Kevin, who wants to be... So we're going to have somebody do like we do it back, like manual stabilization of the head. But this time you're going to grab this whole thing in line. So her head is now in line with her body. Right? Correct? Like back in the day. Same as any backboard. We're going to start off with, here's these cool little pelvic slings, right? Matching, well, it's going to be matching.
So that's like a pelvic fracture?
No, it could be. You can use this as a pelvic fracture. Sling. Click this in, plug, plug. Start tightening this up a little bit here. Then we can go to the legs. We can choose if we want to go to the legs or the chest.
Attention all units, B-Lift will be moving, Bravo Lift moving.
Baker.
Get to the program.
Okay, we strap these in. And we have the yellow strap here. We're gonna
the numbers on
some numbers. You can take notes. Questions.
I think it's where you can probably move the pelvis.
It's going to be math questions.
You can probably move the pelvis binders wherever you need it.
Excuse me?
The numbers, you can move the pelvis binder.
Sure.
That's
right. No, they're not Velcro.
Yep.
That's awesome. It's hyperline.
Once one of these days, we might get these and we will do in-house training.
Person on the side.
Oh, this isn't actually out.
So we don't have these.
No.
That's too bad.
Johann bag of tricks.
Is this what he has at the condo?
All right, tighten the straps like we always do. Like with the
That was neat.
backboard.
I was in it.
Correct. Tighten it up.
Yeah, the beanbag things, yeah. We have a bunch of pelvis points, not pelvis points, we have a bunch of
Still have so the idea with this thing is I'm going to prove to you that this could be used without the C-collar, but in our protocol, we're still going to use the C-collar before we put them in this, right? Unless it's a hip flexor. Sure. All right. Tighten everything here. The last thing we're going to do, we're just going to secure the head. Like that. Okay. We should probably have the hat off, but for this purpose. She's now here. You're still going to have hold stabilization of the head. I'm going to plug this little magical thing here. And this is a vacuum extractor. It's a vacuum. It's not a pump. And yes, somebody said, well, isn't that going to be lost? Maybe. Well, we're good clinicians and we keep our equipment.
So, Johan, should you like use your mouth and go?
But, you know what's awesome? There's an adapter here for, you guess what? Suction units.
This was well thought.
Okay?
As I go sliding down the hill.
It's not like different to the backboard, people. The same thing with the backboard. It's very slippery.
Don't have to run that sled.
Okay? Talk to Joe Duffy. We discussed that with Joe Duffy.
They should have handles just on that.
Well, with this,
I'm going to show you.
That's right, just the handles on it.
Wait.
You just
Seated. So here, what I want to show you is that, try to move your head now. Okay, well, we could have strapped this better in because you have the hat that's sliding off.
well, if she moved her head from side to side, she would have a seat.
That's right. Well, so how does that feel?
This is actually Johann's.
Does it feel really uncomfortable? Hello? She feels comfortable. Has anybody ever said that when they lay on a rigid backboard, that they are comfortable?
No.
This was the greatest ride of my life for an hour. This is unbelievable. All right, so you can take a nap. Right? Cool. So let's take this off. Well, we're going to take a look. We're going to take. How can this possibly be rigid, right? Abracadabra. All right, pop out of it.
So this is just a demo.
Ooh, so cool. How cool is this? See, this is between the legs right here, and this is. This is down towards body.
Now go feel it.
The only difference is with this, listen up. So with this is that we are not going to be able to, it's not that rigid that we're going to be able to do carrying this patient by the foot end. and the head ends, we're gonna have to do the side repair.
Now, what did you say that's the cost of this was again?
How much is it?
Yeah.
For you?
If you have to ask, it's not for you.
No, it's
So it's about $700, $800. It could be up to, there's some of these things that are supposed to be superior, that is up to $1,500, and they do exactly the same. All right? And we carry this patient this way, and this is pretty good.
Now go feel it.
Okay? And how do we get back to nice and soft?
The biggest problem is
Get air in there.
Well, we can take them out of that before we ship them.
And we roll it up.
And throw it out.
Not really, because as EMS providers in the
Biggest
field,
problem is
we're
going to be
not,
to
we're not
get it back
back
from
there.
the. I know.
So
I'm just talking over there. I don't care about me.
What's the biggest problem going to be?
This is going to be the biggest problem. Is going to get that thing back from the hospital because they're going to say, "Oh, this is nice."
What's the
And I will be on the phone,
Is that you have to immobilize
very
it.
angrily demanding our equipment.
So that's just the logistics to get things back.
You know, like Tom, if you're at the hospital and you see something that says, wait a minute,
How many times are we going to use this?
throw it in here.
Is this something that happens very often? Well, zero because we
Don't
don't
put
do
it on
it.
the east side. Just use it as a bed.
Yeah, exactly. All right, guys.
So, Johan, this might be a device that we might use, like, if we have a long extrication, say somebody has a medical problem while they're snowshoeing, or they're off in the woods somewhere where it's a remote location. That is probably the only application where I could see this.
Like low angle
Because the
resolution.
paramedics and the ambulance is not going to want to transport somebody to the hospital in that. They're going to want us to take them off. Because of our spinal immobilization protocols in EMS, we do not transport people on a backboard to the hospital.
Exactly.
Go ahead.
You put a sheet on that. That's the quickest way to.
Sure, we
Flip
just-
it up.
Right. So that could be done.
That is, I mean, the OEC 6 book just mentions this. That is a new tool out there. It's from Europe, once again. This happens to be a Swedish invention. I get a little bit of the issue every time I show it.
So we have.
First the meatball,
We have a reed stretcher that pretty much does the same thing, except without the vacuum. So we do have a reed stretcher available.
Well, the reefs is still rigid.
Yes, it is rigid.
Rips. It's just a tool to show that there's new things out there.
Robin, did you have?
Right.
We used it once for a dislocated shoulder on a long extraction, and the patient was really happy. So you can use it to think outside the box and not just backward.
Good clinician skills.
Right, in a long extrication, like you're saying, that it's, time.
Maybe it's just from the hill to first aid. Anyhow, they're quite expensive, so it's a financial
Don't
issue.
lose them or poke a hole in them.
Right. Well, they come with a repair kit for $19.95. Yes, sir.
At the other mountain that I patrol, we have a number of vacuum sealants. Not that one, but we have large.
Yeah. They come in all kinds of.
When applied correctly, there's nothing back.
No. They are superior. It's no question. All right. We're going to go through. I know. See, they put food out, then everything is just gone. It's like nobody's like, what?
No, not yet. These guys, they have to get the lift ready for us.
So you only have like three rooms?
Yep, I got it.
I'll get it.
All right, so we're just going to review CPR quickly. Everybody should be familiar with CPR. Okay, what's the first thing we got to do, Thomas Porter?
Chest pockets.
When we see somebody down? No, we're not going to talk to them. No, we're not.
We're going to fire ahead.
The because they have COVID and there's a fire and there's electricity hanging. So we got to make sure that the scene is safe. And we have made the scene safe for everybody else around us, including ourselves. Then we're going to do what, Thomas?
Then we're going to verify level of confidence.
Level of confidence. How are we going to do that? Tap them on the shoulder, pinch their chin. Don't do any silly sternal rubs and all that craziness. If they don't wake up after you pinch their chin, they are considered unconscious. Okay? The next thing we're going to do is we're going to check for a very short period of time if they are breathing or any signs of life. If we within 10 seconds have determined that there's no sign of life or breathing, if we can't determine if the patient is breathing or not, guess what the patient is not doing?
Breathing.
It's not breathing. If we're not clear, not breathing. The next thing we're going to do is what? Well, on the hill, we're going to call this a code what?
Red.
Blue.
Blue, red, whatever. Cardiac arrest on whatever. Everybody knows what that means. Code blue, AD will arrive eventually, oxygen, BVMs, all of that good stuff is coming.
It will not be a beer offense if you call it code blue or code red.
No. Whatever code,
Just don't say code black.
Everyone's saying blood anyway.
All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to check for a pulse. Because if they have a pulse, what do we only have to do? Rescue breaths. We don't have to do as much work. If we are not 100% sure if the patient doesn't have a pulse, what does the patient do not have?
A pulse.
A pulse. If you're not sure, okay? Patient does not have a pulse. We have called 911 if we are not on the hill, or we've called code blue or code red, cardiac arrest. We're going to now initiate what?
CPR.
How do we start CPR? Compressions, right in the middle. Nipple line. Yes, different nipple lines of different people. But they should be around here. This is where we're going to do it.
My grandmother's is down here.
Palm of your head. And where should this patient be? On the ground. I'm just doing this for demonstration purposes on the table. All right. How fast should we push? How much?
100 per minute.
120 per minute.
120 minutes?
Let's see. Yeah. How much? If we do a quick math, how many compressions per second?
2.
Oh, smart crowd. All right. Is that a lot? Yes, indeed.
You will be exhausted.
28, 29, 30. How deep should we push on this sternum? 2 inches. Try to push on your sternum. 2 inches. It doesn't move. It doesn't move. Exhausting job. For anybody who's been doing CPR out there, exhausting. This is a team effort. You need to have people coming in and take over because this is exhausting. All right? Unless you have a thumper. Mechanical device that is
I love those things.
That is grotesque looking. They strap on the chest and they adjust it. You push a button and it just exactly 2 inches.
You're just looking to spend money, aren't you?
And it's just grotesque. It's a grotesque machine, but it actually is proven that it does better CPR than humans. So it's something that almost every ambulance service have in their ambulances now.
The Windham ambulance has some in there.
And they don't get tired. They don't get whiny. They don't have emotions about breaking things in there. They just keep on going until the battery runs out, and then you pop another battery in there, and they just keep on going for years and years. All right?
And Tacoma Windham Ambulance will be just around the corner.
That's exactly right. They will strap that up. But anyhow, for us, for our purposes, we're going to do manual, and we're done after 20, 28, 29, 30. What are we going to do? So how much are we going to blow into the lungs? Are you busy?
Enough to see the lives.
2 rescue breaths. How much air should we blow into this person?
See the chest rise.
Via what?
Not
And not what? Not a non-rebreather. Either BBM or a pocket mask. Right? We have always carried a pocket mask. What happens if you blow too much air in here? What happens? There's 2 bad things that will happen. 2 bad things. He's just comes back. He just came back from Olive Garden, all you can eat for $16.99, and he has eaten a lot. What do you think is going to happen? Well, you're going to infringe upon the airway, and that's a problem. That's a problem. Now we have a second problem. Now we need suction units. We need also. If he just hasn't eaten for days, a secondary problem is that we are now inflating the stomach that infringes upon the proper, when we do CPR, airway management, it just doesn't work as well. So only until we see a little bit of chest rise. Okay? Goes for babies, children, and adults. Okay? Once this machine comes on the scene, what is this wonderful thing? AED. What should we do with this thing?
Use it.
We turn it on.
Talk to it like a monkey.
Patient's chest.
All right? Remove clothing from the patient's chest.
Apply pads onto patient's
Just the
bare
chest.
skin.
We don't have to take everything off. I've come to the scene where the patient is naked. And they say, the machine says we should take all the clothing off. No, it did not say that. But anyhow, so turn the machine on,
Remove clothing
and
from
the
patient's
CPR
chest.
should continue. You know, we can put these pads on while there are people doing CPR, right? Just because this one comes, everybody steps aside. Oh, thank goodness the machine came. Continue CPR and put these pads on. You can see on the pictures. One goes here,
Press pads firmly on skin.
and one goes over there.
Press pads firmly on skin.
Pressing pads.
Do not touch the patient. Analyzing heart rhythm. Do not touch the patient. Analyzing heart rhythm. Shock advised.
Good or bad?
Do not touch the patient.
Bad for them.
Good, man.
Press the flashing shock button.
What should we do?
Shock delivered.
Shock is delivered.
CPR.
Begin, and you continue CPR. We're going to do CPR. This is a little slow because it's an old trainer. But it's 120 pressures per minute, 28 to 9. We're going to do 5 cycles of this. It's about 2 minutes. The machine is going to say, stop CPR, analyzing heart rhythm, and do what the man or woman in the box tells you to do. Very simple. So when I said it's good that the red light comes on, because it's a shockable rhythm. There's only 2 rhythms that this machine will shock for you, tell you to shock. It's a V-fib, and what's the other one, gentlemen? V ventricular tachycardia. Those are the only 2 rhythms. If that machine says no shock is advised, it's either a systole or a sinus rhythm. Okay? So it won't shock the sinus rhythm, which is pretty good.
It could be an idioventricular.
It could be many other things, but for our purposes here today, Mr. Cardiology lesson. So it's a good thing that the machine said it's a treatable rhythm if it says shock. Right. Why do we continue CPR after we shock the patient? Because if they have been in cardiac arrest, we need to circulate that blood to get it to the heart, to oxygenate the heart, so it can continue to function. Right? That's good. Wonderful. Now, if we have a child, what's the difference between a child and an adult?
Size.
Size is a very important thing. Children comes in many sizes. So we're going to try not to push 2 inches on the chest of a child. We're going to do about maybe an inch, 2 inch and a half, whatever the size of the patient. We're going to use good clinical decisions of how much we should depress the chest. If we have an adult pack, AED, can we use it on a child?
Yes.
Should we just do it?
Call medical control.
We have things in our arsenal that we can actually consult with people. If we are not sure, if it's a tiny child, they're obviously puberty but small, maybe we should call. Maybe we should get a second opinion. But yes, we can certainly do it. We can put this pad right in the middle of the chest. We can put this in the back, and we'll at least let the machine analyze the rhythm. And if the machine says shock is advised. What does this patient need? Electricity. All right. How about these little guys? Infants. How do we check if they're responsive?
Tickle their feet.
Right there. It's a reflex right here. They get it's very sensitive. So they will, if they react to this tickle, then they are somewhat conscious. You have to determine the level of consciousness. If they're not breathing, they're not conscious, what's the protocol? The same as for an adult, correct? We call, we start CPR, we can do the finger. What's the rate? 120? 2 per second? How deep should we press? Well, they say like 1/3 of the chest width, right? So whatever. You know, again, clinical decisions. Do good decisions, right? Or we can use this. We can use the two encircling the chest, which is the preferred method because it's more exact kind of. That requires us to usually have 2 rescuers. That would be helpful in this case. In any case, I mean, more than 1 rescue is effective CPR. All right? One handles the airway, one handles the chest compressions, and rotate as much as you need. All right? Any questions on that? Very good. Any questions from the gallery? I love it. Great. All right. That's it. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you, Johan. We'll just have a brief lunch, 45 minutes. We'll break into some groups and we'll do lunch back.